Mr. Green, who is also the chair of the Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the ranking member and the witnesses for appearing. I would like to agree with the chairperson that we do look at all aspects of issues. Many members of my family live in rural America, so I'm greatly concerned about them. But today, permit me to say to Mr. Perry, Mr. Perry, I would have paid good money to hear your report. I'm just blown away by what you said. And you're with the Brookings Institution, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, if you are on the panel and you're familiar with the Brookings Institution, would you just raise your hand? I assume that all of you who are on the panel, raise your hand on the panel. Okay, everybody's familiar with, all right, everybody else out there, raise your hand. Brookings, okay, everybody's familiar. Not-for-profit, doesn't take a position on issues, but prevents intelligence, facts, and what you have presented is astounding. Just for edification purposes, some things bear repeating. Homes of similar quality in neighborhoods with similar amenities are worth 23% less in majority black neighborhoods compared to those with very few or no black residents. Now, at some point, we can say that this is a complex issue, and I agree, but it can also be a complexion issue. There's something going on here that's very hard to deny, given the information that you've shared with us. I have in my office photographs of persons from hearings very similar to this. In fact, I brought a couple of photographs in today from a previous hearing where I had persons to raise their hands when I asked a question. And one of these photographs has under it, "Ask me about this picture." It's my way of publishing beyond these hearings what takes place in these hearings. So this is going to be a photograph for my office. I will have under this photograph, "Ask me about this picture." I'm sharing this with you because I want you to know this is a pretty important question for me. And if you care about your station in life as it relates to this picture, it may be important to you. Do you believe that invidious discrimination, invidious is harmful, invidious discrimination plays a role in the devaluation of property in neighborhoods that are predominated with minorities, but more specifically, black people? If you do believe this, raise your hand. I want my staff who are recording this to be sure to get this picture. Would you raise your hand again, please? Only one person believes that invidious discrimination plays a role. So let me ask again for fear that you didn't understand. If you think black people are being discriminated when their property is being appraised, would you kindly raise your hand? One person on the panel. If you think that, for fear that I'm not communicating well, if you think that black people are not being discriminated against when their property is being appraised, if you think they're not being discriminated against, kindly raise your hand. Okay, hands now. We're getting some consternation, I see. Yes, sir. Mr. Wagner?
Could you repeat the question? Could you clarify that for me a little bit more?
Oh, wow.
Your question was, do we believe they're not being discriminated?
Let's do it again. I'll give you a do-over. If you believe that black people are being discriminated against when their property is being appraised, not all, but in these neighborhoods where you have more than 50% of the neighborhood is black people, and the property values are similar to other neighborhoods. Property is similar, but the values are not. Do you think there's discrimination involved in this devaluation of that property? If so, raise your hand. One hand. All right, well, the picture will be up for all to see, and I'll probably bring it to future hearings. I will not let these things go. At some point, we have to deal with racism. With racism, it does. We call it bias. Unintentional bias? Unintentional bias, and some of it is with intentionality. So this is my way of dealing with it. I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Rose, is recognized.